You're going to count it down for us?
5, 4, 3.
You need a cough.
Good evening. Welcome to the Danvers Conservation Commission meeting for January the 13th, 2022, our first meeting of the new year. We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After each applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we'll accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address before you speak. Although we may disagree with the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all other meeting attendees. This includes the members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, and property owners and project applicants. We also request that you confine your questions to the project and only as it pertains to the Wetlands Act. We cannot handle, nor do we have jurisdiction regarding such things as noise or traffic. All problems not related to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Danvers Wetlands Protection Bylaw must be taken up with the appropriate other boards. Next, we'll proceed to a roll call. Peter Wilson is here. Vanessa Curran.
Here.
Chelsea King.
Here.
Ann McGill.
Here.
And Michael Splain.
Yeah.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is a notice of intent for 3 Tibbetts Avenue, DEP file number 14-1372. The applicant is Margret Kelley, and Bill, you're here to represent Ms. Kelley?
Really?
This is our second hearing for the significant renovation of the house at 3 Tibbetts Avenue. I had a fairly lengthy presentation at the first hearing. I won't repeat that. I think the commission was satisfied with the information I gave you. We're waiting for the DEP file number, which we now have. It's 14-1372, and there were no comments on the DEP. I'll be that brief.
Okay, and nothing has changed with the plans since our prior meeting, correct? Okay, let me we'll just go through the board quickly, see if there's any other concerns or questions, and then we'll go from there. So let me start with Mike. Any further questions? No? Chelsea?
I don't think I have anything.
Okay, Ann, any questions?
No.
And Vanessa, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, but this project requires a waiver, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, okay, so we'll get to voting in a minute, but before we close the public hearing, are there any questions or comments from members of the public?
I think we need to do a pause for a second for the audio, because people at home can't hear.
Okay, so we're just gonna freeze for 1 second.
We're just gonna do a minute pause.
You're talking to one of those microphones.
Sure, test, 1, 2, 3. More, you need to hear more?
I hear a little bit.
All the gadgets.
That should be.
Well, see, you know.
And how was your day?
I'm sorry?
How was your day? We're just going to test the mic again.
Oh, okay.
right.
What? I can't understand what you're saying.
I think that sounded better, right?
Yeah, I think that. Sorry about that.
Are we good? Okay, so I think we're at the point where we're asking if there's any public comment.
Right.
I'm seeing none in the building. Is there anyone online, Georgia, that's,
Not that I'm seeing, no.
Okay, I think our first order of business then is to close the public hearing, so if someone can make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion been made, is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So next up, we have to vote on a waiver, and Georgia, just pipe in if I'm not stating this correctly. Because the applicant is asking to build a deck within the 50 and some of it within 35. Is that correct?
Yes. Can you just get a little specific about the waiver?
The only part of the project that requires a waiver is the rebuild of the deck, because the house was built on the same footprint, so we didn't need a waiver for that. It's partially built over the existing deck, and it has a net increase of 247 square feet that extends out into grass. So we're asking for a waiver to construct that deck.
All right. And isn't there some pavement coming up on this, or?
Oh, we have 954 square feet of, a net decrease of 954 square feet of pavement.
I want to hear
And,
you say that.
yes,
Sounds nice.
All right.
it's music to my ears.
And that was all discussed at the previous hearing. Any other questions around the waiver?
No, that's all on the waiver I have.
Okay, if someone can make a motion that we grant a waiver to allow this.
I'll make a motion, we grant the waiver for 3 Tibbetts Ave to allow construction of a deck with an additional 250 square feet?
247 square feet.
Additional
yes.
247 square feet. That's the motion.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now move on to the main, and we need to have a motion to issue an order of conditions for this project.
I'll make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for the notice of intent for 3 Tibbetts Ave, DEP, file number 14-1372. Does staff have any special conditions on this?
No, I don't special conditions.
The usual conditions.
Just one quick question. I know there's going to be some repair work done on the wall, the sea-facing seawall. Will that be done
Low
at
tide?
low tide or from a boat or at high tide or what?
No, all of that work is pretty much parging or repointing of the seawall, or with the boat ramp, working in the original footprint of the boat ramp. That's all going to be done at low tide. My narrative suggests that we're going to put a tarp down on the mud flat along the wall or along the bottom side of the ramp, so that any concrete chips, any mortar spillage is all going to happen on the tarp.
Good. Okay, so the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so, and you've made arrangements with Georgia as far as getting the order of conditions, so you can
Yep.
proceed?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good
All right,
luck.
thank you.
Thank
Good luck,
you.
Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is a public hearing for a notice of intent for 10 Washington Street, DEP file number 14-1373. The applicants are Monica and Eric Fecke. Are you here to represent them as well, Bill?
I am. So this is Bill Manuel from Wetlands and Land Management in Danvers. And I just want to point out that it is 10 Washington Street Extension. So So it's correctly identified on the notice of intent paperwork, the agenda, just didn't have the word extension on it. So this is a fairly simple project. It does not require any waivers. There is the existing home, number 10, and cross-hatched. The property is about 1.8 acres. It's a fairly large lot, but I'd say a little bit more than half of it is encumbered by wetlands to the rear. Here's the wetland boundary that I did earlier middle of last year. And it basically went right along, there's a sort of a shrubby fringe transitioning to a marsh in the back. And for the most part, the flags crept up into the mowed lawn. They don't have the limit of brush line here, but they're probably a couple of feet outside of the brush line there. And that was basically using hydric soils to determine where the upper edge of the wetland boundary was. This is the corresponding 35-foot no build or no disturb line and the 50-foot no build line. So again, here's the structure. There's a lot of improvements in the rear yard, beautiful outdoor kitchen, patio area. Monica is an avid gardener. She has a seasonal greenhouse over here. She's got grapes growing here. We got a chicken coop with a chicken run, whatever you call it, a little yard for the chickens to get out. And then this is a single-car garage. And perhaps, Georgia, can you bring that up on the page a little bit more?
Yes.
Perfect. So the proposal is to add an in-law apartment or extended family living area. Is that what we call it?
Yes.
So an EFLA.
Airflow.
And the applicants have already gone through the Board of Appeals to obtain the permission to do this EFLA on the site. And so the Conservation Commission is the last step in the permitting process. You can see that the EFLA will be attached to the house. This is sort of a common area here between the the living area and the existing house. This is the living area. The front portion is a garage. You can see this, I put some color on the plan. This red area is the garage, and this is the chicken coop with the chicken run. And then on the top side of this, there'll be basically an at-grade terrace to walk out on and have a couple of chairs on the terrace. You'll see, here's the 50-foot no-build line, and all of that work is outside of the 50-foot. It goes up to it, but not over it. So it all occurs within maintained lawn area or within the footprint of these structures. This orange line is the erosion control that we're going to install. It would be a mulch sock erosion control that you can see is right up on the 50 line, so it's intended to be very tight to the work site to make sure that workers don't stray over that line. It's appropriate on this site. As I said, the area is all grass where the work is going, and so the mulch sock lays out very easy to install here. And the backyard is pretty flat. These are 1-foot contours, so you can see it's a very gentle slope in this area. And we're more than 50 feet away from the nearest wetland flag. So, as I said, we don't need waivers. It's a fairly straightforward project, an addition that's occurring within a lawn area.
All right, 2 quick questions, Bill. Where will the chicken coop be relocated to?
Chicken coop is going to be relocated over to this side of the house.
Out of our jurisdiction.
Yep.
Okay, and is the garage being moved forward?
This open part that's not shaded is the garage. It's just being attached to the,
But there's a garage there now in that exact same footprint?
nope, this long rectangle, red rectangle is the current garage. Obviously, that gets demoed. There'll be a small driveway extension. This hatched area here is the, Washington Street extension plus a little driveway. So In order to be able to get into the new garage, there's a little bit of pavement right here that has to be extended.
Is the garage going to be smaller than the existing?
No, the garage would be larger than what's there now.
With the apartment behind it.
Yep.
Okay, and there's obviously going to have to be some excavation, right, for foundation and plumbing. Do you have plans for where they're going to store the soil they remove?
Yeah, as I explained in my narrative, it's fairly standard. It'll be a slab-on-grade type construction. In other words, there's no cellar. So we need a shallow excavation for a frost wall, and they'll just lay that right next to the trench, all around the perimeter of it, and install forms, pour the concrete. Once they pull the forms off, they just backfill that. They push that right back into the trench. Anything that they can't put back in the trench is immediately taken off-site.
Okay, let me ask the members of the board what they would have for questions or comments. So I'll start with you, Mike.
Yeah. What's the size of the garage now, Bill?
Well, let me scale it. Hold on a second.
Bill, I have a photo.
Existing garage was 168 square feet.
Okay. And it's being extended to what? So you can get 2 cars in there or
That's
something?
right, yep. Yep, so the
Side by
garage,
side or one behind the other?
side by side.
And that's on slab?
Yes,
And the EFLA's on slab?
yes.
And then what, probably a door from the EFLA into the garage or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going up as well, or it's just all, the EFLA's one level?
I don't know the answer to that.
Know that? Does it impact the project?
No, not at all. Because frankly, the commission doesn't care about what happens on the second floor.
All right. That's mostly true. Thank you.
Just the green line, Bill, is your 100-foot.
And that would be the 100-foot buffer zone line, yes.
Okay. Chelsea, any questions?
No, I don't have anything.
How about Vanessa?
I just have a question on how the roof runoff will be handled on the new addition.
We can barely hear.
Say that again, Vanessa.
I have a question about how the roof runoff is going to be handled. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you.
How
Yep.
does he know? He doesn't know if it's 2 floors.
The existing house has gutters and downspouts that shed to the adjacent lawn area. It is all grass, nicely maintained grass from, the street back to the wetland boundary, and it's very gently sloping. The same treatment will occur on the EFLA as well. There'll be gutters and downspouts. They'll be directed to stabilized grass area, and it'll have an opportunity to infiltrate passively. We really don't have any opportunity to do anything subsurface because of the shallow groundwater. Here's the wetland boundary at roughly elevation 32. So, you wouldn't get in the ground more than a couple of feet before you hit water table.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Vanessa?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else, Vanessa?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, before I get to you, Ann, let Mike
No,
ask.
just, Bill, where's the 100-foot coming off of? In other words, where are you taking the measurement to the 100-foot?
Well, you would take it off of this flag, and this flag.
All right, and what are we seeing there? Is there, what is there?
What is,
I mean, is there a brook there? What's there?
no, I think there's some sort of brook way in the back,
Yeah.
but this is all just a kind of a shrubby
Oh, all right.
marshland all up through here.
I think he said there's his testing, like by the, testing the soil.
Okay, all right, so, but just to be clear, and, Steph, if we're taking 100 or 200, isn't that usually off an intermittent stream or a perennial stream or a river?
So the 100-foot buffer is measured off the vegetated wetland and intermittent streams that have banks. The 200-foot's going to apply when we have a
200-foot is-
perennial stream, so the 100 is relevant here.
And that, when was that flagged?
I believe it was in the summer of 2021.
Yeah, so fairly recent.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, thanks.
Ann, any questions, comments? Okay, any questions from the public? All set? Anyone online, Georgia?
No. No one online.
All right, I don't see any further questions, so I think we ought to move to close the public hearing and then proceed to vote. Make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing on 10 Washington Street Extension, Department DEP file number 14-1373.
Motion's been made to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so next up, I think we're ready to issue an order of conditions. If someone can make a motion to that effect. And if there are any special conditions we want to add, now would be the time.
Are there any?
I'm not
We're
aware of
good.
any, no.
Okay, then, I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 10 Washington Street Extension, DEP file number 14-1373.
Can I just interject on the motion? What kind of heavy equipment's coming in there? You said you go down a little bit and it's all water. Is that going to present a problem with disturbance?
No, I don't think so. They will probably use, they're going to use an excavator. It doesn't need to be a huge one, but it'll be a tracked machine.
What you're asking, because I think you said it went down a foot or two. and
You
have to go
said
down
it's
4
very
feet.
wet there. I
Yep.
mean, won't that thing just make a mess, like disturb, is it clay
No.
soil?
No, we were just there, Georgia and I and the applicants were just there a couple of days ago. No, the ground is firm. I'm just saying that the water table, by the time you get up near the structure, it's probably going to be about 4 feet deep by the time we get up where the excavation's going to be, but that's still too shallow to really put anything in the ground.
How deep's the slab go?
Let me tell you what the grade is.
Did he say a foot down on the water table? Where's the water table, Bill, a foot down?
Well, the water table is going to be right at the wetland boundary, which is elevation 32. And he doesn't have the slab elevation called out here. But I would say it's going to be something on the order of about 37, just because 37 kind of splits right through the garage floor.
3 feet?
That would be 5 feet.
5 feet?
You said the elevation's 37.
Oh, I see,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So 5?
Yeah.
All right.
What's the existing foundation for the house now?
They don't have that elevation called out on this plan, so I
Is it
can't tell you.
slab foundation or is it a basement?
I don't know that.
Okay, yeah,
Didn't really look at the existing home.
so that's a showstopper.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so there'll be an order of conditions for you at some
All right.
point.
Thank you.
Next up is an amendment request for 160 Andover Street, DEP file number 14-1061. Georgia, a quick question. It says second request here.
Yeah, so we're just noting that the site had previously amended the order of conditions that we're discussing tonight in the past. So it's just formality that this is their second request in which they
So
were,
this was back in 2006, whatever?
yeah. And in this case, that required them to pay, I believe, $100 more than they would if it would have been the first request,
Oh, okay.
based on our updates.
Okay, so the applicant is PMG Northeast LLC. Who's here to represent them?
Good evening. My name is Brian Levy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So for some reason on my Teams setup on my monitor, while I can see my project engineer, I can see no one else. I cannot see the board. So hopefully you can see me, and I'll just proceed. As I said, my name is Brian Levy. I'm here for Petroleum Marketing Group, which is the owner and the applicant. And on the line is a representative of the owner, Gary Kilfeather. Also with me tonight is the project engineer from Colliers, Jesse Coakley, and our wetlands engineer, Ray Walker. Just a little bit of background on the site. The PMG owns the 1.32 acre parcel, which is on the south side of Andover Street or State Route 114. PMG took title, one of its related entities took title in about 2015, and then PMG took title in 2020. The property houses a gas station since the 1950s. And today, the property now has a Gulf branded self-service station with 5 gasoline pumps and a 3,000 square foot building which contains a convenience store and a 355 square foot Dunkin' Donuts. The current buildings and setup that you see in the property are the result of a raise and rebuild that was done by Cumberland Farms in 2006. And that brings us to tonight, where, as if you look at your agenda, you can see that we have 3 items on the agenda tonight which are interrelated. The first one is the request to amend the order of conditions. Secondly, a request for a certificate of compliance if the board elects to amend the order of conditions. And then coupled with that is a new notice of intent request. So those all 3 sort of work together. So we're seeking to amend what was approved in 2006 on the condition that we come back with a new NOI, which has already been filed, so that we're going to be improving the conditions at the site. So the first item is the amendment for the order of conditions. And in your submission package, you can see there's a letter to you which summarizes that amendment of order of conditions request. And the specific things that we're looking to amend are found in the 2006 order of conditions that was issued to Cumberland Farms. And specifically, we're only looking to amend 2 items in that order of conditions. One is a condition deleting condition 94, which governs the restoration plan for the property, because in the subsequent notice of intent that you'll hear later, we're going to be we've provided a new proposed restoration plan. And then the second thing we're looking to do is to eliminate condition 92, which limited the square footage of activity in the riverfront area. In this case, we're only looking to add a little less than 1,800 square feet of activity in the area behind the building in support of a single-lane drive-through which would wrap around the building to serve the Dunkin' Donuts. And to date, the permitting for this has included a use variance granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So this is our second stop. You may recall we were in front of you last summer for some informal conversations about this. So again, the amendment request is to basically swap out what was the planting plan for what will be the new planting plan that you will consider in connection with the NOI, and to drop out the condition relating to the amount of square footage that can be there can be an activity within in the riverfront area. The certificate of compliance request would be to approve and say that we comply with the 2006 order of conditions with those two caveats, with those two conditions of the 2006 order of conditions deleted. In connection with that request for the certificate of compliance, there is an as-built plan in your packets. So let me stop there and entertain any questions.
Okay, the first question I have, and I'm not sure if anyone can answer it, but why was there a condition put in the 2006 order of conditions limiting the riverfront activity? I think from what George said that
So
they weren't
So
going to
that's
allow
a great question.
activity.
So I spoke with David Field about this when he was still on the team there at Danvers, and what he said to me was he understood that was sort of a boilerplate provision that at that time the commission was adding to its orders. So that's the best answer I can give you.
Georgia, can you verify that?
So I can, that is along the same lines, David Fields and I agreeing in that. And then I will say in my time here in Danvers, I've seen that very limitedly. I can say I've seen it maybe one other time on some residential properties in Woodvale, and honestly around that same time period. So if you do look at the MACC model bylaw that is in there, and it is written the same exact way as similar to boilerplate language.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, I'm going to let other members have their chance to asking questions. So once again, I'll start with you, Mike.
All right, thank you. With regards to the removing those conditions, 92 and 94, what exactly is 92?
So 92 is the condition limiting the amount, the square footage of activity within the riverfront. So I'm getting a lot of feedback at this
It's all right,
point.
I'm asking staff. What's the language on that, Georgia?
I don't have it right in front of me, I can grab that, but it is
I
limiting,
can,
saying they're taking the whole using the subject parcel riverfront area, they maximize the 10%, so that there could be no more alteration unless it was considered a limited project.
And what about 90, and this would not be a limited project?
No, but in that, removing that condition, then they would be able to do the redevelopment
So just
project.
to be clear, you have to remove this condition to do what they ask.
Exactly, because that condition was
What about
held.
number 94?
94, I don't have that in front of me. If the applicants want to pull up or read it, they can.
sure. So 94 says the restoration area shall be planted in accordance with the restoration plan. Following completion of restoration activities, this area shall be kept in a natural state and shall not be landscaped or mowed. This condition shall be noted on the certificate of compliance and shall continue in perpetuity.
That's strong language.
However, having seen the site, back of the greenery, there wasn't anything. I mean, it was just all built up with whatever.
Well, they never did, though.
Right, right.
They never did the
So-
plantings, and I want to put a driveway where those plantings are supposed to go.
Well, we've got that 10-foot drop back there, too.
Essentially, isn't that right? You want to put the driveway where the plantings were supposed to go?
So I think at this point it would be helpful, Jesse, to put up the proposed conditions plan and to have you walk through it a bit.
Sure thing.
I'll hold my
Thanks,
question.
Brian. Can everyone hear me okay?
Just very barely. Can you just speak up, or someone can increase the volume?
Yeah, let me try one other.
That's good. Once he keeps talking, then they can
Okay.
adjust the audio. So you're good, Jesse.
Okay, thank you. So let me go to the proposed plan. So I'll go to the existing conditions plan. Oh, actually, let me start with the proposed 2006 landscaping plan. So you can see they kind of had a grid pattern of plantings here, that encroached past the wetland line, pretty much going almost up to Crane Brook. an aerial photograph taken from shortly after the construction work was done, you can see very faintly that maybe an attempt at that landscaping was done, but that if you look at a more recent aerial photograph, that has kind of not held up. It's the invasive species completely took over. Those plantings that were there have died. There's no discernible grid pattern whatsoever, and the area immediately behind the building remains pretty much maintained regularly as like a lawn area, even as part of that previous approval. There were some stormwater features, dry wells behind the building here to capture the roof runoff. So you can see that a little bit more clearly on the as-built plan that was included. You can see this line here, which I'll go in color, is kind of like the edge of the wooded vegetation. And so this area between there and the building is really all grass. That's where we are looking to place the drive-through. So the next plan I'll show you is kind of the proposed layout. The drive-through kind of stays in that grassed area. And then you'll also see included in the plan set is, the proposed landscaping plan, which includes some of the clearing of some of those invasive species up to and a little bit, beyond the no disturb line. It also includes removing some of the existing debris that had been dumped over there through the years, kind of cleaning up those asphalt piles. I believe that grass clippings was one thing that was brought up in a prior meeting, and so kind of planting a more natural and native pattern there. Also kind of flattening the area a little bit beyond the driveway, and including some green infrastructure infiltration stormwater techniques there as well as another enhancement. So yes, that driveway is going behind the building where those plantings were supposed to be, but were not really being, did not survive and was just being mowed regularly.
Okay, so, quick question, were the plantings done originally and they just didn't survive, or, from what I've read and heard, they were never done?
It is tough to tell. It was the prior owner. You can see in this aerial, it looks like they may have been put in, but they certainly weren't maintained. If you look through historic aerial images, this immediately becomes overgrown, and this grid pattern is nowhere to be seen. You can,
Is that,
so.
the perimeter, is that the property line? Is that as far back as we're going now, where you can see like 7 or 8, it looks like shrubs? Right,
This here you're speaking of?
right. Is
Yeah.
that the limit, is that the property line?
The property line actually goes back to the center of the brook. So it goes another, I would say, 30 feet or so.
Okay. And that's the brook right there, the dark area?
Yeah, the brook is somewhere, in here. You can kind of see where some other photos, some of the ones you can see
Okay,
as
so,
well.
like I said, my understanding was that the remediation work or the planting work was never done, but it looks like it was.
It never was done.
Yeah, this,
It's in the informal meeting we had back in 2020,
Right, yeah.
Mr. Wilson stated that there were improvements proposed under the previous application and were never done. So that's, who is Mr. Wilson? Is he part of your group?
no, I think he's indicating Mr. Wilson, the chair.
Yeah.
But I will say this is the first time we are seeing this, having noted that the plantings were attempted to be planted. I don't recall that coming up
Oh,
at
we
the
didn't
last.
see that before. We didn't see
Okay.
that big
That probably
photo.
looks like something was planted in a grid. It's pretty distinct.
Yeah,
But, and now seeing the newer one Jesse had just showed, it's obvious those are not, they did not
Can we see the more
take.
recent photo again? Because it does look like
Yeah.
some of the bordering shrubs have taken off a little.
Georgia was just saying.
There is stronger vegetation there, at least at
Yeah,
the
it's-
far edge.
And what kind of vegetation is that, Jesse? Is it,
I think we had previously spoken, it was like some knotweed, you know, it's pretty invasive in there. I think during the informal sessions, there were some photos that were submitted. I think one of the members went out and took pictures too. You know, I may have some photos. I'd have to
Okay,
run and pull.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think this is more of a discussion
Yep.
for a future NOI. So let's try and get through the amendment and the certificate of compliance, and then we'll move on to that.
Yeah, okay.
Mike, did you have any other questions?
Well, just, I mean, this is,
Just relevant to.
this is being done so they can put a driveway in for a drive-up Dunkin' Donuts?
That's the long-term goal, yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the driveway is gonna be in the area it's maintained now. When we were there,
Right,
it was like
right, it
grass.
was the grass, yeah.
And there's
Correct.
landscaping proposed to go with it.
Did you do that?
But I don't know where, it seems that there'll have to be some redirection of how people come in, because that's gonna end up with a queue.
That's not up west.
Look at High Street, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that-
you
yeah,
can't, where are the cars gonna go?
they did
Well, that's
receive
not-
a,
That's not our purview.
they got a use variance from the ZBA for the drive-through.
Yep, that's the zoning board
And they
problem.
did, when we were before the ZBA, the traffic was discussed and we provided a queue study and a traffic study, you know, demonstrating that. We've also coordinated with Mass DOT as well. And they said, if, you know, the town approves it, then, you know, they're good with it. We don't need any permits or anything from them as well.
Yeah. I just look at what predecessors did, and that's awful strong language. This is it, no more work there. And I'm wondering if we can see the minutes from back then.
Well, that's 2006, that's before
Yeah.
the laws came in, so that's probably why
Well,
they were
no.
strict.
No, but, well, they just said too that they think that might have been boilerplate at the time. Just
Yeah.
like a-
Yeah, well, I'd like to know that.
Okay, that's a fair question.
It does, one thing to note with that condition number 92, is that, you know, the project proposed, the language says the proposed project utilizes the maximum limit of riverfront area permitted under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Regulations. No further activities will be permitted on the balance of the subject parcel, with the exception of maintenance of this area, unless they are filed as limited project number, you know, under the regulations. So the one thing I do want to bring up is the proposed drive-through and work that we are doing is all within that previously degraded area. It's not on the balance or the leftover portion of the site. So I think it's
Is that
still.
degraded area, though?
Yep.
Is that, what makes that degraded?
You had the same
Well, that's
question
what-
at the last hearing.
Huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
think,
had the
I
same
think it'd be
question at the
helpful,
last one.
Jesse, if you show the plan with all of the wetlands lines. Because basically, it's a bit of a unique situation where largely the entire site is degraded, and we're sort of reworking the degraded area. So
Right.
you can see, yeah, maybe you can just show the different lines.
That's where I get
Sure.
into the question, well, how are we defining a degraded area? And I would defer to staff, but what makes that degraded? Well, what happened there to make it a degraded area?
So that there is industrial uses on, it is defined clearly in the act, and this is a topic that did come up at the last discussion in what is considered degraded, giving the uses previously on the property, the industrial uses dating, I think there's been 3 gas stations redone on that site.
But if that was always lawn, for example, is
Well, it
that-
may not have been, there could have been structures there before
Yeah.
that were moved.
Yeah.
So you need to
Yeah.
take into account the previous historic uses on site, not just what the site looks like now. And that's what considers it degraded
Right.
for
So
the,
is there a way to determine what was there before? I mean, if we can say, yeah, it definitely was degraded, but maybe it wasn't.
but, and also, again, I
Yeah.
don't have them in front of me, but I'll give it to Brian, because it sounds like he wants to attest to
Yes,
that.
so Jesse, if you go back to the first plan, I think it's the 2006, what is the date on this? Yeah, so you can see here, this is an earlier plan showing, yeah, so the site was arranged totally differently. The building was sort of perpendicular to the street rather than horizontal to the street. And there was a lot more pavement on the property. I'd have to sort of do an overlay of it, but I don't think we're putting pavement where there wasn't pavement before, or where the area was sort of compliant with what you would expect for a riverfront area. That it was filled with debris and invasive species, invasive plants, and it wasn't what you would expect. You would sort of colloquially call it degraded. It wasn't really a riverfront area at all. It wasn't a functioning riverfront area. And I don't think we're looking to do anything different than what they were looking to do in 2006. We're sort of working within the previously degraded area.
So you're suggesting, I think, that where that lawn is now, at one time there was structure or hot top, right?
So I can't say with specificity that that's true. It may be true. I'd have to sort of line up all the plans. But as you can see here, there was a totally different layout of the building. The building was perpendicular to the street, and it pushed much further back than it does today. They basically flipped the site around and made the building parallel to the street rather than perpendicular. So there was a lot more hot top. See, this is the way they switched it around. So there was a lot more pavement back behind the building than there is today.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. That's all I had.
Okay, Chelsea, any questions?
No, I think everything I was gonna ask about got addressed once we saw the proposal.
All right, Vanessa, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't have anything.
Ian, any questions?
No, I'm gonna, I'll hold anything, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Since this is a public hearing, does anyone in the public have any questions or comments? Nope. Anyone online, Georgia?
Nope. No one
Um,
online.
Okay, so why don't we move forward? So if someone's willing to make a motion, as a suggestion, Georgia's staff comment in the memo is probably a good basis for how we would word the motion.
Okay, I'd like to I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll try to, okay. I'd like to amend the order of conditions for DE file number 14-1061 to remove conditions number 92 and 94 that were found in the 2006 OOC.
Does that cover our bases, Georgia?
Yes.
It does. Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, because I don't think there's enough, we have enough information, but
Okay, but there's still, the vote is 3-1?
Yeah.
Okay, so the order of conditions has been amended. So next on our list is a request for a certificate of compliance for 160 Andover Street, DEP file number 14-1061. And the applicant is PMG Northeast. Do you folks have anything else to add to the previous discussion?
No, basically this works hand in glove with the order as amended, and there is a as-built plan to accompany this COC request.
Okay, and staff that as-built plan agrees with everything except for items 92 and 94?
Yes, and of course, the plantings, as discussed.
Okay. Okay, so we might as well move along. So if I'd entertain a motion that we grant a certificate of compliance?
To the 2006, okay, I'm trying to follow what we're doing. Okay. I'll make a motion that we order a certificate of compliance for DEP file 14-1061, 160 Andover Street.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay, so once again, the motion carries 4-1. Okay, so that piece of business is complete. Next up is a notice of intent for 69 North Street, Subdivision Roadway, DEP file number 14-1370. The applicant is John Hernandez, and that's Chris Barrage, I presume, that's here to represent?
Yes, he's here.
Okay, so go ahead, sir.
Good evening, members of the commission. Can everyone hear me okay?
No.
Yes, just speak up a bit if you could.
Sorry, Chris.
Us old guys are just...
So there seems to be a little bit of a delay from what I'm seeing on the screen and what I'm saying. But can you hear me or no?
Yes, we can hear you.
Better.
Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to try not to look at my face while I'm presenting. Thank you for hearing us this evening. Just to give you a little bit of quick history, this has been a little bit of a frustrating subdivision project for us. We submitted our plans with the planning board back in July, and we got some initial comments back from planning staff, and the engineering department comments were a bit delayed. And then 4 months into the project, we found out through planning staff that town council had a problem with the position of our stormwater management area in relationship to an existing drainage easement where the United States of America has a drainage pipe that runs through the middle of the property. There was a feeling that the town didn't want to have any of their infrastructure crossing over the USA pipe. And so we went, we met with staff and engineering, and we came up with a solution and revised the plan, submitted it back in December. And that solution still didn't satisfy town council. We still showed some pipes that crossed over the 24-inch drain line, and so what we decided to do was to change the type of stormwater management area from an underground infiltration basin to an above-ground infiltration basin. It was actually our initial design when we were first planning out the project. We had designed the project with an open basin, which is also a perfectly acceptable way to handle stormwater. Our client, Mr. Hernandez, asked us to take a look at putting the structure underground. And decided to move forward with the underground option. So we came back to planning staff and the town engineer with this idea of bringing the basin above ground, and it was well received. We wouldn't have any pipes or anything like that crossing USA pipe, and we drew it up, presented it, and responded to engineering comments that we received in January, and then we received a follow-up memo from the town engineer. Planning staff recommended to the planning board to approve the project with the proposed change to an open basin. We just met with the planning board this past Tuesday, where the planning board voted to approve the subdivision subject to changing the type of stormwater management area from a below ground to above ground basin. And we're currently revising the plans to present the planning board a final Mylar set that shows the infiltration basin. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just update the commission and show them on what that basin is going to look like and how it differs slightly from the below ground basin. Is it okay to share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, I might suggest you, not that we don't want to see you, but maybe taking off your video capabilities because there is a little bit of delay and I wonder if that may help with the bandwidth. I don't know if that's a thing, but.
Okay, so now that I'm
It's not our night.
sharing. Okay. So let me know when you see the screen.
All right, it just came up.
Okay, so this is the last set of plans that the commission saw. Thorson Akerley from our office had come to you at your previous meeting to present these plans, and I'm going to just scroll down to the topographic plan. It should just take a couple of seconds here. Water management area, if you recall, is down at the end of the cul-de-sac. I'm going to zoom into that area. This is the reason why we are before the commission. There is a small BBW just to on the north end of the project here. This is the USA pipe, the 24-inch pipe. And this is what we had done to initially address the concerns of the town council. We separated the underground stormwater management area into two pieces with 4 pipes connecting one side to the other. You can see that this is the driveway that heads out to lot 5. And we have a slope on the downhill side. And then on the uphill side is the stormwater management. Now I'm gonna change my screen, and you're gonna see in the same area now, instead of a below ground basin, you're gonna see an above ground basin. And because an above ground basin can take advantage of the open space of the air, the basin actually takes up a little bit of less space. And you'll see that in just a moment here. Okay, this one has a little bit of color on it. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes?
So I'll just zoom in just a little bit more. And here again is the BBW. I highlighted it here. And you can see the USA pipe here in blue. And now that same stormwater management area, you can see it's a little bit skinnier, takes up a little bit less space. And so stormwater from the cul-de-sac and the roadway would enter this forebay, which is a little bit of a pre-treatment area here. And then it would slowly overflow across a riprap swale that's only about 6 inches deep. So water would slowly flow across here and then into the infiltration basin, which is an open basin here. And this is where the infiltration would happen. We have an outlet control structure, and then an outlet similar location to the previous plan. You can see the driveway out to lot 5, and then just on the uphill side here is the infiltration basin. So right now what we're doing is updating the stormwater report and our calculations just to reflect this change. And we'll be sharing that with the town engineer within the next week or so. And then we expect, so what I did find out in addition is after the planning board took their vote on Tuesday, the very next day the planning board filed the decision with the town clerk, so that clock is ticking. It's a 20-day appeal period. That appeal period has to end before the planning board can hear us again to sign the final plan. And so this is in the works, and we're hoping to submit this, as I said, to the town engineer within the next week or so. And then, of course, as soon as those plans are finalized and submitted to the town engineer, we'll also submit them to the Conservation Commission. So that's my my brief presentation for tonight, but I'm happy in here to answer any questions that the members may have.
Just one quick question. I'm not even sure if it falls within our jurisdiction, but you're still going over the pipe for the U.S. government, is that correct? And that's okay with all the relative parties?
Yes, that's correct. This is just earth now. We are not really changing the grade. And so if the USA ever needed to come in and do repair work or replace the pipe, all they would have to do is just do their work and then just restore the grade to what it was before, and it wouldn't interfere at all with the operation of the basin.
Okay, good. And there's no changes in the work that's within our jurisdiction, which is pretty much in the roundabout, in that riprap area. Is that correct?
That's right. We were very careful from the beginning of the project to honor the new 35-foot no disturb zone and the 50-foot no build. So there are no roadway, no sidewalks, no driveways within 50 feet of the wetland.
Okay.
That there will be no changes to that.
Okay, so, and I think I heard you're requesting to continue until our February, what is the date, George?
10th.
Our February 10th meeting, and that will give you time to get through the planning board process?
Yes, I think that's appropriate because I think it's a difficult ask to ask you to close a public hearing without having the final plan before you.
That's correct. Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that. Okay, and just in the interest of time, I'm not going to pull members of the board because we'll have another opportunity. Does anyone in the public have any comments before we move along? Okay, so why don't we, someone can make...
We have someone online. It looks like Mr. Duggan has raised his hand.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan. You know, as I look at this plan, and I've been thinking since Tuesday night when the applicant was before the planning board. So originally there was that underground storm tech system that's been replaced now with a surface type retention pond. My question is the defined wetlands area as it is today, that's based on sort of a natural flow of water that comes from other areas of this property. How can we be sure that with this new retention system that the wetlands won't be modified somehow because the water will be flowing into it from a specific location versus what happens today where it kind of just consolidates there based on a natural sort of funneling. So is that something that the commission tries to estimate? Will the wetlands will it shrink and become smaller? Will it try to relocate itself based on the new direction of the water flow? Is that something that the commission tries to consider based on, I know you can't really predict it accurately, but is it something that you try to?
Mr. Chairman, I could answer that question if you'd like.
Yes, because I was going to defer to you anyways, so go ahead.
Okay, that's a very good question that Mr. Duggan asked. What we do, we definitely consider water balance to wetland areas. And when we prepare our stormwater report and go through DEP's 10 stormwater management standards, we have to prove that we're in compliance and we meet each one of them, including known as point source discharges, mitigating peak rate of runoff, making sure that we're infiltrating an appropriate amount of water and spreading it out across the site, making sure that we're treating the water and removing total suspended solids, and then there are others that have to do with discharge to critical areas and things like that. And what DEP tells us, and the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, is that if we are in compliance and we comply with the 10 standards, that we're protecting the interests of the Act and that includes the concern that Mr. Duggan brought up. And our stormwater management form proves that we are in compliance with the 10 standards. This is something that was also reviewed independently by Stephen King, the town engineer.
Okay, and I have a follow-up to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may, go ahead.
So let's say that somehow this didn't come to fruition, that the wetlands as it is today pretty much stays the same in terms of its footprint. If it were to somehow, some areas were to dry up due to lack of moisture, is that something that the commission could go back to later and look for some type of remediation to or replication? Not necessarily here, but I'm not sure you could do it anywhere else on the site. But would you have the power later when everything's said and done, and that this infiltration basin is becomes activated? Is that something you can go back and revisit this?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to respond to that.
Yes, please.
So I would say what the commission's going to look at and scope out now is going to be impacts to the wetlands as shown on the plan with the project as is proposed. If for some reason there's impacts to those wetlands during construction as a result of the construction activities, then we would look at either changing conditions or changing erosion control to prevent that. If 3 years down the line there seems to be habit changes to the wetland, I don't believe a way we could correlate it to that. But I do also want to note that wetlands are very fluid. They change their habits all the time based on rainfall, based on weather, based on other seasons. I'm sure the wetland now, like as we have heard from some neighbors, they're getting more water than they've had before, and the site's been exactly as it is for years. So habits and wetlands do change. I also know that back wetland areas, there's a number of outfalls from a number of the roads in the area that outfall to that wetland, and I believe the pipe will still remain feeding that wetland area. So I think there's no concern for the habit of the wetland and how it may respond. And as Chris had said, all that's taken into account in design to prevent exactly that losing those areas.
All right, and just one follow-up to Ms. Pendergast's comment. So this wetlands is actually an attribute for this property. I think that the new homeowners would enjoy the wetlands because it brings nature close to their property. I'm saying that hoping that they don't get flooded, but just in terms of wildlife, birds, plantings, that type of thing, it adds kind of a nice atmosphere, I think, to what might otherwise look like just your standard run-of-the-mill subdivision. So that's all I have. Thank you for the opportunity to provide my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Is there any other questions? Hearing none, if someone can make a motion that we continue this hearing?
Can I just ask, what's in the USA pipe, if they know? I mean, what's contained in that pipe?
I believe it's just, if Chris wants to speak to this, but the Nike site that's across the street, I believe they just have government offices, so it's stormwater runoff.
Pipe?
What? Yeah, it's a drainage of is that correct, Chris?
Yes, the pipe that crosses through the middle of our site collects street runoff from North Street. So all of the catch basins that are across the frontage of this property of 69 North Street.
Thank you.
Start on the top of the hill, which at the top of the hill is the entrance to the Army Reserve Base. If you come out of the Army Reserve Base, you take a right, and our site is on the left. That's a downhill stretch. And all of that street drainage for quite a ways across the frontage all collects in a series of catch basins and drain manholes, and then discharges through this 24-inch pipe into the wetland out back. It's just street drainage.
So it's just a drainage pipe.
Okay. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to continue the public hearing to our February the 10th meeting.
I'll move we continue the public hearing for North Street to scheduled hearing on February 10th.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is a request for determination of applicability for 24-42 Cherry Hill Drive, DCC file number 22-01, and the applicant is Abiomed. My understanding is that the applicant has requested a continuance until our January 27th meeting.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Oh,
So if someone could make a motion, we will continue until then.
And I'll move we continue the public hearing for Abiomed, DEP. Do they have a number?
But, no, 'cause it's
It's a
not
DCC.
because they're only asking, it's a
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
there is no
okay.
number.
NDI.
To January 27th hearing.
Okay, a motion's been made. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up is a notice of intent for 160 Andover Street, DEP file number 14-13. And it looks like we do not have a DEP file number for this at the moment.
Correct, and they have anticipated this occurring, not having the file number, so they have requested for us to open up discussion at the next hearing when things are ready to go and it's not as busy.
Want to wait until then?
Yeah, so they would like to request to continue to January 27th.
Okay, so someone can make a motion that we will continue to January 27th on this?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for 160 Andover Street to the next meeting, January 27th.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there any old or new business that we need to consider?
There is not. It's done.
Okay, so if someone makes a motion to adjourn, we will adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn the January 13th meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good enough. We are adjourned.
Aye.